When Queen Boudica was flogged and her daughter's raped, she wanted revenge. It's arguable if she got it. Boudica, or as Olmec would put it, Boudica. She has all manner of names, but none of them really matter because we're calling her Boudica here. Lived in Roman Britain. She was married to Prasutagus, king of the Iceni tribe. Hey, the same picture works for all three syllables. By the way, every time I hear Iceni, I always think... Nah, creepy bastard. Sorry, back on point. The Iceni had allied with Rome during the latter's invasion and subsequent conquering of the island. The king had worked with the Romans whenever possible, though there was a quickly ended conflict at one point when Rome decided to disarm the local tribes. Probably seeing the writing on the wall and understanding that Rome was much more powerful and it was best to stay in their good graces, the king named the emperor, who at the time was Nero, and his two daughters as co-heirs to the throne, hoping to solidify the bond between the two sides. But yeah, that didn't work. Instead, when he died around 60 or 61 AD, the Romans seized everything and took total control of the tribe, looting whatever they wanted. When Boudica stood up against such measures, she was flogged and her daughters raped. We're pretty sure this happened. The aftermath makes a lot more sense if it did. Now, the local tribes already weren't huge fans of the Romans. People booing a Roman, get it? That was just bad booking. He's beat leukemia twice and he had every right to drop out of WrestleMania. Moving on. Queen Boudica went to the other local tribes who were also at odds with the Romans and were tired of Roman settlers pushing into their territories, and together they formed a coalition under Boudica's leadership. It was revenge time, Charles Bronson style. So they marched towards MacLeod, whose inhabitants hadn't been the nicest to the tribes, and they'd built a temple to the previous emperor Claudius, which they'd built with taxes taken from the tribes, so none of this went over well. The people of the city called for the Roman governor of Britain, Catus Decianus, to send help, but he only sent a few hundred troops against the thousands that Boudica commanded. The troops were crushed, the city destroyed, and I don't mean that figuratively, and when Quintus Cerealis arrived to aid the city with his legion, they were almost completely destroyed, the remaining Romans fleeing to a fortress and holding up for the rest of the revolt. After this defeat, Catus fled Britain and stayed in Gaul until it all blew over. However, word of the revolt also reached Gaius Suetonius Paulinus. No, he wasn't actually made of stone. Images can be rare sometimes. Who was in the process of ending the Druid resistance on the island of Mona. He led his men to the city of Ladue, guess what city that became, but found that his numbers were too small to defend the city, so he abandoned it. And, like MacLeod before it, Londonum fell, the city destroyed and the inhabitants killed. And by killed, I don't mean they were cut down and died. These people were tortured to death.
It's a bad scene, man.
Thank you, Hermie, but yeah, it was horrific. They took down another city, Verulamium, and between the three cities, the tribes killed 70 to 80,000 people. But Suetonius, well, he was a star-spangled man with a plan. He knew he didn't have the numbers to win in an outright battle unless he was able to pick a favorable location, and so he continued to march along, picking up reinforcements from other legions. Except for one legion whose leader decided to say, nah, that's okay, and sat it out. Suetonius amassed an army of about 10,000 men, but they were being pursued by a force that was estimated to be upwards of 300,000, but that's probably a little high, so we'll say between 100 and 150,000. Still outnumbered 10 to 1. And as he moved along Watling Street, hey, that's what it's called, he found the perfect place. We aren't quite sure where it is, but we have descriptions of it. An open field that led into a defile, or a narrow pass between hills that was backed by dense forest. This was what he was looking for, and he readied his men for battle. Now, I know when folks think of Warrior Queen, this may come to mind, but A, Boudica was a queen, not a princess, and B, I highly doubt she made that noise. Can't prove it one way or the other, I just highly doubt it. But Boudica was said to be a gifted orator, keep your mind out the gutter. And as her army readied to face the waiting Romans, she gave an impassioned speech. The armies took their places, and the families of the tribespeople set up their wagons behind the line so as to get a good view of the battle. After all, they destroyed every Roman force that they had faced up to that point. Why would this be any different? Well, it was. The Romans used the terrain to negate Boudica's numerical superiority, and after using all the spears, they charged in a wedge formation. We aren't sure if it was a normal wedge style or the often quoted saw blade style, but either way, it was effective as hell. They broke through the Iceni lines, the Roman cavalry run roughshod through them, and they began to retreat but found this damn near impossible because of the wagons. Oh, hubris, what a fickle mistress. The tribes were cut down, nearly all of them dying, Boudica herself either taking poison or being killed in battle. The revolt was over, but the cost had possibly made Nero consider abandoning the island altogether. Instead, he sent a new governor, Gaius Classicianus, who was more prone to have a soft hand when dealing with the locals. Oh, and when Paulinus Postumus, the leader of that legion that decided to sit things out, heard about the glory he had deprived his men of, he killed himself. Just thought I'd add that.